Good afternoon, race fans. This is Rob from the Area 51 Racing Podcast. Today is episode 85. I will be giving my race report for the past weekend Chicago Street Race for the Xfinity and NASCAR Cup Series races, along with Jeremy Clements Racing race report from the Xfinity Series race, and then also Rob's Racing Hot Takes from this past weekend in the racing world. To start out, I'm going to give the NASCAR Xfinity Series and Jeremy Clements Racing Chicago Street Race report. Saturday morning was practice and qualifying. Practice was chaotic as several drivers had issues with their cars spinning, hitting the walls or the tire barriers, or had mechanical failures. Drivers who spun or wrecked in practice, and there were many, were Sheldon Creed, driver of the number 00 Haas Factory Team Ford, Christian Eckes, driver of the number 16 Kaulig Racing Chevy, Chris Wright, driver of the number 5 R Motorsports Chevy, Taylor Gray, driver of the number Taylor Gray, driver of the number 54 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, Connor Zilich, driver of the number 88 Junior Motorsports Chevy, Sage Karam, driver of the number 53 Joey Gase Motorsports Toyota, and Thomas Annunziata, driver of the number 70 Cope Family Racing Chevy, all wrecked during practice. Anthony Alfredo, the driver of number 42 Young's Motorsports Chevy, had an oil line break during his first practice run. It was just chaotic and crazy. There were some memes of like downtown Chicago with a bunch of cars piled up on the roofs on top of each other because of how crazy things were. Austin Hill, driver of the number 21 Richard Childress Racing Chevy, said that there was less grip on the street course than there was last year. The CW broadcast team mentioned that they figured it was because another year of weathering on the asphalt on the streets of Chicago that the course was being run on was causing this to make the racing surface unpredictable on how the car was going to be able to react and handle to it. Jeremy Clements made 2 practice runs totaling 6 laps. He battled a loose car. The team made adjustments with 3 minutes left in practice. Jeremy's crew chief, Case Kallenbach, decided not to make another run as Jeremy was reporting that he had an extremely loose car, especially on the downhill to a right turn portion on the course. Jeremy said it was really sketchy, so Case and the team made big adjustments to the car for qualifying. Again, Jeremy and Case discussed the benefits of going back out based on the fall off, the track conditions, and the chance of wrecking a car. Jeremy said he didn't want to wreck his primary car and have to try to go to a backup car. Qualifying for the pole, the winner for the Xfinity Series was Shane Van Gisbergen, driver of the number 9 Junior Motorsports Chevy. Jeremy Clements qualified P19. Jeremy said that his car was a lot better and that he had way more grip. He said that he did leave some time out on the track because of some of the sketchy areas of the course. He wasn't able to go 100% because he didn't want to go over that edge and wreck his car, and then they would have been scrambling to get his car fixed so they could compete in the race that was later that afternoon. Jeremy said for the race, he felt like they were going to be battling forward drive due to the looseness of his car, and Case Kallenbach, his crew chief, agreed. And at that time, Case said, hey, it's not really worth taking a second qualifying attempt run based on what he was seeing from the other cars making a second lap. They were actually slower by 2 to 3 tenths or more. So he said it wasn't worth the risk of possibly wrecking the car. So they didn't make a second run and ultimately ended up starting the race P19. At the beginning of the race, Jeremy had 3 spotters. His spotters before the race started, said they were having trouble seeing in turns 5 and 6, plus a few other areas on the track because of the location of the 3 spotter stands that were determined by NASCAR, the music stage, and the banners on the track fencing in the areas of the corners and other areas of the course. In stage 1, Jeremy continued to battle a loose car. They stayed out to gain track position when the first caution came out. Jeremy radioed his crew chief, Case Kallenbach, at this time to tell him that his cool suit had stopped working right after they went back green from that caution. At the end of the stage, Jeremy pitted. They made adjustments, gas tires, and gave him water to try to keep him hydrated and cool. It was in the 90s and humid, and inside the race car, well over 100 degrees, especially with that cool suit not working. And Jeremy was extremely hot. The pit crew and Case continued to try to keep Jeremy hydrated and cool by offering water and also bags of ice during each of the times they stopped for a pit stop. Jeremy ended up finishing stage 1 in P13. Stage 2, he continued to battle a loose car. There was a caution with 6 to go on the stage. Jeremy's crew chief, Case Kallenbach, said that they were going to pit to flip the stage and be on the same pit strategy as 3 of the lead cars in front of them. One of them was Shane Van Gisbergen, who was the race leader and had been dominating the race so far. Case said that they could go to the end of the race on fuel. Jeremy told Case that his car, again, is still loose under braking in right-hand turns. Case advised that they made adjustments, tires, fuel, and again gave him a drink to keep him hydrated. He ultimately ended up finishing stage P27. It didn't quite work out as well for Jeremy as it did Shane Van Gisbergen and the other 2 cars that tried to be on the same pit strategy as Jeremy. They obviously had better handling cars than Jeremy did. And so stage 3, again, throughout the stage, Jeremy battled a loose car. And unfortunately, with 14 laps to go in the race, there was a caution for a wreck. And at this time, Jeremy radioed his crew chief, Case Kallenbach, and told him that he is losing his brakes. He said that he is pushing them to the floor and he can't slow down. Case told Jeremy to pump his brakes, see if they can get some pressure back in them. That did not work. Case said to Jeremy to stay out, hoping that the brakes will last to the end of the race. He said to continue pumping his brakes while under the caution laps, and hopefully, he'd get enough brake pressure to be able to ride around and stay out on the course without being lapped. The race restarted. Jeremy was being cautious and ended up dropping from P18 to P26 because of his brake issue. There was another caution on lap 45 of 50. Jeremy at this time came on the radio and said that he has no brakes at all now. Case told him to bring in the car. He told the pit crew to open the hood and add brake fluid to the brake reservoirs. And then he also had a crew member check underneath the car to check the caliper and brake line areas to see if one was leaking or broken. A crew member did this and advised that they found a leak on the right rear brake line and caliper. Case had them tighten the line and sealed off the leak. They went back out on the track, and the track restarted with a green-white checker. Jeremy ended up finishing the race in P30. Unfortunately, because of the brake issue and his looseness in the car, but the team didn't quit or give up. Just unfortunately, it was one of those days. Before the race ended in a green-white checker with Shane Van Gisbergen winning the race for the second straight year. He also had his cool suit not working, and he had to also receive, or he too had to receive medical treatment after the race due to the heat. During the engines, I should say, during the stage 3 of the race, Case Kallenbach had mentioned that he had over the radio to the other crew members that he had messaged the infield care center and asked them to have a medical personnel come to their pits to check on Jeremy at the end of the race due to him having his cool suit not working during the race to make sure he was okay and get him hydrated. Jeremy Clements is currently P20 in the driver's point standing. He's 3 markers back of Josh Williams, driver in the number Colleague Racing Chevy, who is currently in P19. Like I said, the Xfinity race was basically a battle between Shane Van Gisbergen, driver in the number 9 Junior Motorsports Chevy, and driver Connor Zilisch, the driver in the number 88 Junior Motorsports Chevy. Coming into turn 1 on the restart for the green-white checkered, Zilisch and Shane Van Gisbergen were battling side by side for the lead. Shane Van Gisbergen went wide up in the corner underneath Zilisch, forcing Zilisch up towards the wall, and Zilisch bounced off the wall. And at this time, Van Gisbergen got the lead and never gave it up, and ultimately ended up winning the race. Shane Van Gisbergen had obviously, like I said earlier, won last year's Xfinity Series race, and then he also won the inaugural, I should say, Cup Series race in Chicago, which gives him 2 Xfinity Series wins and a Cup Series win. Zilisch finished P2, and P3 was Sheldon Creed, the 00 Haas Factory Team Ford. This weekend, the Xfinity Series takes on the road course at Sonoma Raceway in California. You can watch the race Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on the CW. The Cup Series race report, practice and qualifying was on Saturday after the Xfinity Series practice and qualifying. During the practice, there were, again, several cars that had issues hitting the walls, tire barriers, spinning, and having mechanical issues, just like in the Xfinity Series practice and qualifying. The Cup Series was using a different tire and compound this year than they did last year during the Chicago street race. So that was another issue that the Cup Series teams were battling, besides the surface of the street course being weathered and more slippery than the years prior. Qualifying pole winner was Shane Van Gisbergen of the number 88 Trackhouse Racing Chevy. So SVG ended up sweeping the poles for the Xfinity and Cup Series race. A bright spot and a cool thing in the Cup Series race, driver Catherine Legg of the number 78 Live Fast Motorsports Chevy qualified her way into the race as an open team. She beat out Corey Heim, driver of the number 67 2311 Toyota, for the last spot in the field. It was a really good qualifying run by Legg, as she had picked up over a second on her qualifying lap times compared to her practice times. It was good to see some of the Cup drivers post qualifying congratulating Legg and giving her high fives, especially after all the negative things that she has been facing this year from fans and some of her fellow competitors. Legg ended up having a decent race and actually finished P19 after starting P33. Due to issues in practice and qualifying, 10 cars had to go to the rear for unapproved adjustments or not making a qualifying run due to having to make repairs to their cars. This blew my mind. All 4 of the Hendricks Chevy cars, the number 5 of Larson, 9 of Elliott, 24 of Byron, and the 48 of Bowman, had to go to the rear. Elliott and Byron didn't make qualifying runs due to wrecking in practice. Denny Hamlin, the driver of the number 11 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, blew an engine in practice and didn't make a qualifying run. And then the other cars to the rear for unapproved adjustments from damage in practice were Noah Gregson, driver of the number 4 Front Row Motorsports Ford, Ty Dillon, driver of the number 10 College Racing Chevy, Bubba Wallace, driver of the number 2311 Toyota. He had to replace the starter, so his was due to a mechanical failure. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., driver of the number 47 Hayek Motorsports Chevy, and then Catherine Legg, driver of the number 78 Live Fast Motorsports Chevy, all had to go to the rear. Some of the favorites to win the race ended up having issues during the race, as they did in qualifying and practice. Mike McDowell, the driver of the number 71 Spire Motorsports Chevy, started the race P2. He had a strong car and actually won the first stage of the race. This was his first stage win for Spire Motorsports as a company and team. Unfortunately, at the beginning of stage 2, McDowell had his throttle cable stick, which resulted in him having to pit to fix this issue, which ultimately took him out of contention for the win. Chris Buescher, driver of the number 17 RFK Ford, started P8. He had engine issues during the first stage, causing his car to backfire and run rough. He had to pit. His team changed the ECU in his car, which is the computer that runs the car. His engine issues continued and was told by his crew chief that his issue is an internal engine issue that they couldn't do anything about. So this took Buescher out of contention as well. During the first stage, William Byron, driver of the number 24 Hendrick Motorsports Chevy, radioed his crew chief that his transmission was slipping. This resulted in Byron having to exit the race and finish with a DNF. There was some controversy during the race with NASCAR not calling cautions in a timely manner. I will discuss this in depth as one of my hot takes here shortly. On lap 29 in stage 2, Josh Berry, the driver of the 21 Wood Brothers Ford, made hard contact with the wall after being bumped by the number 43 Legacy Motorsports Toyota, driven by Eric Jones in turn 7. Berry's car was stopped on the racing surface. The caution flag was not flown for a lap, allowing all the cars in the field the opportunity to pit before the caution was flown. Some cars did take advantage of this and pitted, giving them the advantage over other cars in the field that didn't pit. The other delayed caution was even more egregious. It took place during the green-white checkered lap 74-75 at the end of the race. Cody Ware, the driver of number 51 Rick Ware Racing Chevy, lost his brakes coming into the turn 6 and plowed into the tire barrier at 93 miles per hour per race telemetry info. His car was buried under the tire barrier, and it was approximately 34, 43 seconds. I can't remember the exact time, but it was a decent period of time before NASCAR decided to throw the caution flag, which ultimately they did. In the race, leaders Shane Van Gisbergen had taken the white flag, so the field was frozen, and the race ultimately ended under caution with Shane Van Gisbergen in the number 88 Trackhouse Racing Chevy getting the win. This ended up being a race weekend sweep by Shane Van Gisbergen. He won the poles in both the Xfinity and Cup Series races, along with winning both the Xfinity Series and Cup Series races. He is this only is the second driver in NASCAR history to sweep the poles and the race wins in both the Xfinity and Cup Series races at the same track on the same weekend. The other driver to do this was in 2016. It was Kyle Busch when he swept the poles and the races in the Xfinity and Cup Series at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Finishing P2 in the race was Ty Gibbs in number 54 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, and P3 was Tyler Reddick in the number 45 2311 Toyota. The next Cup race is on the Sunday, 7/13 at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on the TNT. So I'm going to get into my hot takes this week. Like I said, the thing this year with NASCAR, and it's been a complaint in the past by fans and drivers, that, I mean, even through the years, not just recently, it's been through the years of the history of NASCAR, that NASCAR is inconsistent in when they throw cautions, especially this year. It's been an ongoing thing. You get the mystery caution for mystery debris on the, for instance, let's say on the backstretch, and there isn't any. Or you'll have a car, for example, like Cody Ware's car, 93 miles an hour into the tire barrier where he's buried and can't get out. And they don't throw the caution for a period of time until the leader takes the white, so the race is ended. So then they don't have to do a green white checker. I mean, it is crazy. I don't understand. So to dive into this week's inconsistencies with the Chicago street race, the two incidents I mentioned, the Josh Berry one, Berry was on the track, stopped. And I know during the race, there were other cars that spun, and NASCAR gave the cars time, or the drivers, to get their cars refired and going. But Berry sat on the track. It was over a lap. Cars passed him before NASCAR threw out the checkered flag. They don't do that on any other racetrack. I mean, I don't see them doing that at Talladega, where cars are going by at 200 miles an hour with a car sitting on the track, on the racing surface. That doesn't happen. And then it shouldn't happen in this instance. And it was basically what I was reading on social media is NASCAR allowed all of the field to pit under green, or gave them the opportunity to pit under green before they threw the caution flag. And, you know, some cars took advantage of it, and a majority of them didn't. And, you know, that, where is the fairness in that? I mean, I guess they could have pitted, but at the same time, you could have an incident like, I think it was Brad Keselowski earlier this year was going to pit, and there was an incident, a caution, and he started pulling in him. I think it might have been Phoenix Raceway, if I remember right. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to that, because my memory is not the best. But he was pulling on to pit road, and I believe it was Keselowski, pit road, and literally a foot before he got to the line, the caution comes on, and he's already committed past the commit box. So he ended up getting a penalty for pitting under caution. So I'm going to guess that a lot of these teams were worried about that. That's why they didn't, you know, come around the corner into the pits, because they were afraid they were going to get penalized for pitting under caution. And then the other one that's been the most egregious one and baffles my mind, and I mean, it's getting a lot of traction this week, is the Cody Ware crash. If you're a NASCAR fan and follow NASCAR, if you haven't been under a rock this week, you know and have seen the video of what happened during the lead, I should say, the field take going to the white flag. In turn 6, Cody Ware lost his brakes 93 miles an hour based on telemetry into the tire barrier. There's a video to give you a perspective of how fast he is going. There is a flagman with his arm through the fence hole waving a blue flag, and the guy didn't even flinch, because that's how fast Ware's car went by him before he could remove his arm and hand from outside the track behind the fence to safety. He is lucky that Ware's car did not rip his hand and forearm off. I mean, honestly, I'm glad that didn't happen. But at this point, watching the video, I have no idea how it didn't happen. I mean, it was miraculously, you know, that it didn't happen. I mean, and then there's radio of Ware saying, hey, over his team radio, which I'm pretty sure NASCAR race command or race center, race control, whatever you want to call it, monitors all the team's radio traffic. I know they do, because they have, penalized drivers in the past for saying stuff like, I'm going to wreck so and so, and then they do it, and then they penalize them for it because they say something, and then they get fined and all that kind of stuff. We've seen it in the past. Kyle Busch is one that I know for sure in the past has been penalized through the years for stuff like that. His brother Kurt Busch back in the day too, same thing. I mean, I'm not just picking on those two, but those are two for sure. I know that I definitely remember hearing stuff over the radio and then getting penalized or or black flagged, whatever you might call it. But to get back on point, Ware says, I need help. He just hit 93 miles an hour into this tire barrier, buried up to the windshield, the roof windshield where the roof and the windshield meets with tires. He's in the car and says, I need help. NASCAR doesn't throw the caution flag and allows the leaders to continue on. I think it was like 34, 43 seconds, something like that, that I read on social media, that in reference to this, that they allowed the leaders to take the white flag and then threw the caution. That way they wouldn't have to do another re-rack of the field and do another green-white checkered, as there was bad weather, there was lightning and rain off in the distance. So they would have had to delay the race then, because literally after the race ended, it started raining. And in my opinion, and others, NASCAR knew that. They didn't want to wait around. They wanted the race to actually be finished before the bad weather got there, and they could be done with the event and get everybody out of the area instead of waiting around several hours, having to wait for the track to dry to finish the race, or ultimately just calling the race then. So in a sense, I understand, but I also saw a video by the gentleman who is the director of race control for NASCAR that showed the command center or race command center, whatever you want to call it, that had all these TV screens of cameras in all the corners and all over the racetrack. It was just like going into a TV control trailer that they would use, like TNT would use to cover the race. They have the TV cameras plus the NASCAR cameras that they have set up in these corners. They have NASCAR officials and workers in the corners that have communication abilities. So I don't understand this whole concept of, you could have still thrown the caution flag, had to go around, and if it started raining, then you just said, okay, the race is done, SVG is the winner. That would have been an easy solution to it. You have the ability to do that. The race is past halfway. You could easily do that. You have a time limit anyways for the race, which was 8:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. And based on the rain that was in the area, I mean, I only live within an hour and a half of the city of Chicago where the race was, and we were getting rain and storms here that were headed there. So, it would have been, they probably would have ended, the race would have been called anyways. So why would you jeopardize the safety of a driver in order just to say, oh, we finished this race under, caution, so the race was finished? so we didn't have to wait for a green light checker and a rain delay or lightning delay or whatever. I mean, that makes zero sense. So this morning, I saw a social media post. Cody Ware actually was on Sirius XM radio, and they were interviewing him, and I listened to the interview. And Cody Ware, driver number 51, Rick Ware Racing Chevy, said that he hit so hard that he cracked his helmet and his Hans device, along with several other interior objects in his race car, were broken and damaged due to the force of the hit. He could have easily been killed. And NASCAR, to me, after hearing this and seeing that video, was more concerned about getting the race in than one of their drivers' safety and potentially his life. I mean, I'm a medically retired law enforcement officer. I have been to multiple really bad car wrecks and have seen people die in wrecks due to a ruptured aorta. They bleed out. 34 seconds or 43 seconds or whatever it is, he could have easily had a ruptured aorta, and thank God he didn't, and bled out and died in that time period. That is the risk that NASCAR decided to take to finish the race instead of caring about one of their drivers. And me as a race fan, I think obviously you're listening to my opinion. I don't agree with it. They definitely would have thrown a caution on any other racetrack. Like I said, Talladega or Daytona, you got cars going 200 miles an hour. You got one wadded up in the wall. Let's say they're down on the apron off the racing surface, like Cody Ware was. You can't tell me that NASCAR is not going to put the caution flag out. They do it every time. Like I said before, they've done it for having a small piece of paper on the racetrack. Shit, they disqualified or black flagged Josh Williams at Atlanta, I think 2 or 3 years ago, because he had a piece of bear bond that was on his race car came off. They black flagged him. And that's the famous one where Josh Williams basically gave NASCAR the middle finger, parked on the start-finish line, got out of his car, and walked to his pits, left his car parked on the start-finish line. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing NASCAR every week, because that's not my intent. My intent is to share my opinion about racing, but I have such a passion for racing that this stuff upsets me. And I care about the drivers. I care about the fans, the officials, the sport in general. And I don't think this is a good look for NASCAR. SVG was going to win the race. I mean, he had a significant lead. So if they re-racked the race, maybe he wouldn't have. I don't know. But it just makes no sense that that NASCAR would do that. So I guess I went over it enough and for my first hot take. But NASCAR, you need to do a better job with the yellow flag. Be consistent. Think about the safety of your drivers and fans and officials. You got to do better, NASCAR. Come on. My second hot take for this week, and this doesn't just pertain to the Chicago street race, but road courses in general. There's been a lot of it, and this is not a new thing. This is for years, but it reared its head this year at the Chicago street race. Issues for spotters and at the Chicago street race. The music stage caused some sightline issues and hearing issues for spotters due to the speakers being in front of them and being so loud. So one of the three locations NASCAR, in my understanding, based on everything that I've listened to on radio, the team radios during races, and the information I've read about, and I could be wrong, but this information is that NASCAR gave three designated locations on the street course for NASCAR spotters. One obviously had to be at the main location with a NASCAR race official, and then the other two were at different locations on the track. I do not know for sure where all three of those locations were, except for I do know one of them, at least for the Xfinity Series race, as I listened to Jeremy Clements' scanner radio during the race, one of his spotters was right across from the music stage, and it caused some sightline issues and also hearing issues. The speaker on the stage were facing the spotters, and they were playing music and speaking on them, and they were so loud that it was hard for the spotter to hear and speak because of the noise. You would think NASCAR would have thought about that before they put one of the spotters in that location. I get it; it's an entertainment thing for fans, and you have speakers and stuff. But again, think about logistics for the spotters and stuff, and their safety for the drivers on track and everybody actually at the event. So that was one thing, is the location where the spotters were with the stage and the speakers. And then the other thing, before the race started, Jeremy Clements' spotters, the three spotters he had, Jeremy was talking with him, and he said, or they were saying that there were banners blocking their view in some areas of the track that were on the fences. And they also, there are areas on the track just based on where NASCAR set up the spotter stands that they couldn't see. It was blind areas. And that they told Jeremy he had to rely on his mirror and himself to clear himself or watch for wrecks as a result. And also, I mean, not just in the Xfinity Series, but in the Cup Series, Freddie Kraft, spotter for the number 2311 Toyota, driven by NASCAR Cup Series driver Bubba Wallace, said on his Door Bumper Clear podcast this week that there was a large TV screen that he used to try to help him spot Bubba, even though there was a delay in the video feed because he couldn't see areas of the track to spot because of these issues I just mentioned. I don't know if NASCAR wouldn't allow other spotters. I know Jeremy Clements radioed his spotters that he said we need at least 2 more spotters in addition to the 3 we already have. So we have this whole street course covered to make sure, we're all good. I don't know if NASCAR limits it. I'm assuming they do. Otherwise, I would think they would have had the extra 2. I don't know. But this also was an issue at the race in Mexico City. I know it's been an issue at other tracks as well. Not as much as Mexico City and the street race due to banners. That was the biggest one, was banners on the fencing. But the other deal at these the other issue for the spotters is radio issues, because these courses are so big and spread out. They have radio issues for communication with the driver and the spotters, and then the crew chief and team members. So I don't know how NASCAR can fix that, if they put a repeater system or something in the track to try to get the communication better and clearer. I honestly don't know how they fix that. I'm assuming that's what they do. I do know, like a lot of teams for their pit box setup, another issue is internet. Obviously, at these big events, everybody's got a cell phone. They're using the internet and cell service. So I know Jeremy Clements Racing, based on listening to their radio traffic, they have Starlink that they use, which is genius because they're able to use that. So they have a specific designated internet and cellular link for them to use, or messaging link, or whatever you want to call it, for them to use to be able to make sure that the information they're getting is not delayed or disappears during the race. And I'm assuming a lot of the other race teams use the same technology. But either way, that's another issue that I've been digesting and listening, and this weekend it just came to light that I'm going to talk about that as one of my hot takes for the week. The other and final hot take that I have this week is the discrepancies between the grassroots racing, asphalt grassroots racing versus grassroots dirt racing. The disparities between car counts and also the payouts. And I know this has been a common ongoing thing that goes on throughout the country. Racing is extremely expensive. Promoters have to make their money. I get all of that. Payouts aren't as great. I used to be part of a race team before my health got bad. We raced the late model across the Midwest, asphalt late model. And I know racing is extremely expensive. There's no parts warranties or anything like that. You have to pay for everything, and it's extremely expensive. And the payout, unless you're winning big races, you're not making money. You're losing money. And there's probably a very small percentage of people that race that are able to, at the end of the year, say they made money. But they're also spending a shitload of money in order to get to that level. But either way, so a good example I've picked for this to show the disparity, and just to myself wondering why it is that dirt races have higher payouts, higher car counts, whereas asphalt racing doesn't have necessarily the best or big payouts. They do have some for big races, but they don't have per se the huge 40, 50 car counts as these dirt races do. This past week, the 46th annual, the Cobblestone Hotel Slinger Nationals 200 lap super late model race was a $20,000 to win race, an asphalt super late model race. NASCAR Truck Series champion and NASCAR super late model phenom Ty Majeski from my home state of Wisconsin here ended up winning the race for his fourth time, I believe it. The $20,000 to win is the biggest purse that I know of for races in the state of Wisconsin. They also started several years ago having fans donate money and sponsor a lap 1 through 200. And whoever led that lap would get that amount of money that was sponsored for that lap. So let's say I sponsored, the Area 51 Racing Podcast sponsored lap 51, and we gave $510. Let's say Ty Majeski led that lap. He would get that $510 added to his payout for the race. So that in the past, that sponsor lap fund, lead lap fund, has raised over an additional $16,000 for fans, or for, I should say, drivers in the field. So between the $20,000 to win and the $16,000 approximately, give or take, it's a lot of money for an asphalt race. However, I'm going to use USAC, which is a similar level of racing compared to this super late model race that, it's Slinger Speedway. USAC is the United States Auto Club Racing. It's a dirt racing series primarily, and I picked the USAC sprint car races. So there's two events that I used as comparables that would be similar to, in my opinion, the Slinger Nationals. One is the Western World Championships. The total purse for that event is $92,150 over the 2 days. It's a Friday and Saturday event for 2025. The winner on Friday got $7,500 plus $600 pay to start the race. So they got $8,100. Okay. And then on Saturday, the winner of the race got $15,000. And then they also had an additional $15,000 in lap money as bonus payouts for the top three sprint cars in the field during each lap. So they divided up that money. So the winner of this event, I mean, like I said, is comparable. They would end up feasibly getting more money at this dirt event than they would for the Slinger Nationals. Even though it was a 2-day event, it's still, they would get more money. And another one is the Indiana Sprint Week races. It's $25,000 to win, and then they have 7 features, and the winner of each of the features gets $7,000 to win. Again, more money than this asphalt race, and they have bigger car counts. And I know there's people in the industry that I have friends that own tracks and are promoters and have been promoters and track owners for years. And I know they obviously, know what they're doing because they have successful tracks and series and this is in the asphalt realm, I'm saying. It's just, I don't know if it's because of the cost of racing that for asphalt than dirt. I honestly don't know. I mean, I know it costs a lot of money to race a dirt car. My friend that I was on his race team, he switched from an asphalt late model to a basically super late model or late model dirt car. And it is crazy. I mean, obviously the tires are way more expensive on a dirt car. I don't know. You gotta travel. Obviously, like both series. I mean, you gotta have really good sponsors and partners and that type of stuff. So that's basically my hot take. It was more of a discussion to see what others think. If you have an answer to it or an idea or whatever, send us a message or tag us in a response or something on our social media page of Area 51 Racing Podcast, and let's have a discussion. I mean, I want to see both asphalt and dirt succeed. Like I said, I'm a huge race fan. I love asphalt racing a lot more because I've been around it and part of it, but I enjoy watching dirt racing as well. I mean, my bucket list is to go to the Chili Bowl someday. I watch it every year, the final or, some way. This last year was awesome because it was on Flow Racing. Before that would be, I'd be able to watch the final on MAV TV, but or even the Dirt at the Dome race or whatever it's called in St. Louis. That'd be fun to go to sometime. I watched that last year. That's an amazing event as well. Kenny Wallace races his modified. I follow Kenny Wallace. Obviously, if you don't know, Kenny Wallace is a NASCAR great and legend. He's the longest tenured NASCAR, or has the longest tenure starts in NASCAR Xfinity Series at 547, I believe it is. Jeremy Clements hopefully will be breaking that record this next season. But I follow him in his social media. He's entertaining. He's got an awesome podcast, Kenny Conversation. He's got Coffee with Kenny in the morning. His Twitter is funny. His Snapchat is even better because he's unfiltered more than he is on Twitter and his other social media platforms. But I don't know. I don't know what the disparity is, but either way, I would love to see more of the bigger car counts, more payouts, these bigger races and that type of stuff. And I don't know what the solution is, but just food for thought. But that's my hot takes for this week and my race report from this past week from the Chicago Street Race for Jeremy Clements Racing, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. This episode is brought to you by The Runner's Roost. The Runner's Roost is a small business owned by Robert Fox. They have been in business for 40 plus years. They specialize in running shoes and running apparel. They have 2 stores located in Orchard Park, New York, and East Amherst, New York. You can also order online from The Runner's Roost on their website, www.therunnersroost.com. Thank you to all of our partners who make this podcast possible. And also thank you to all our viewers, listeners, and supporters. We greatly appreciate it. Bobby, Dave, and I would not be able to do this podcast without you. I'd like to thank Spartan Waste, Fox Sports Spartanburg, Harrison's, Action RV, Kylie Glick Racing, Mattman Designs, The Runner's Roost, Alliance Drive-Away Solutions, Anna Moore Designs, Circle B Diecast, Driven Sunglasses and Driven Trackside, Elite Towing and Recovery, High Speed Auto, Boost Pops, The Racing Warehouse and Armadillo Apparel, Belcher Cheesecake Creations, Flam Form Concrete Structures, First Pacific Funding, Golly Beard Products, Wings Etc., Dialed In Focus Pouches by Whitetail Smokeless, Benzik Designs, Schanzenbach Landscaping, Enigma Tattoo Studio, Aero Parts Group, Overwear Apparel Group LLC, SBJR Designs, Jeremy Clements and Jeremy Clements Racing. Without all of you, Bobby, Dave, and I wouldn't be able to do this podcast, and we greatly appreciate the support. Before I go, our t-shirts and merch are for our 100th episode are live currently on the Overwear Apparel Group LLC page. You go on our social media platform Facebook page. There's a link on there. Click on that link. It'll bring you directly to our storefront at Overwear Apparel, and go ahead and order merchandise. They will make it at Overwear and then ship it to you. And please wear it and enjoy. We're looking forward to this 100th episode coming up. 15 episodes. This is episode 85 that I just am completing here. So if you would just check out that post, buy some of our 100th episode merch. We greatly appreciate it. On that note, everybody take care. Enjoy this weekend's racing and for the Cup and Xfinity Series out in beautiful California and at Sonoma Raceway at the road course. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care and have a great day.